three.
Good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Kirsty Elmore with Extension IT, and with me is Dr. Zaira Jordan. She's the Web Accessibility Coordinator for Iowa State, and she has agreed to do a 5-part webinar series for Extension and Outreach on digital accessibility. So we've broken up the content on each webinar series to kind of go into more depth on each topic. And today she's going to be presenting just basically the overview of digital accessibility. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her. And if you have any questions, please use the chat box and we'll get to your questions as soon as we're able.
Good morning. Like Christy said, I'm Zaira Jordan. I'm the Web Accessibility Coordinator. Good morning, Iowa Extension. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited about this presentation and the series of presentations that we've prepared so that Extension is well informed about what does it take and what is it and how to do it and why. So with that, let's get started. First of all, let me show you the agenda that I have here. So today we're going to talk, like Christy said, it's somewhat of an overview. What does digital accessibility entail? We're going to talk about the why, the rationale, all the background behind it. Why is it that it's important, and why is it that it's important for extension specifically? And just to give you a few examples of how you use it, how do you benefit yourself from accessible digital content? We're going to have throughout the presentation a few checkpoints that are intended for you to interact with us. And I'm going to enter the links to the questions in the chat box. You can click on those if you will, if you want, that is. And I'll see the report. So let's start by defining what is digital accessibility. And the World Wide Web Consortium is an organization that was founded by basically the HTML inventor. HTML is the coding that it's used behind web pages so that things you can click go to other places and that the web works in general. According to the World Wide Web Consortium, the web is fundamentally designed to work for all people, whatever their hardware, their software, language, culture, location, or physical or mental ability. When the web meets this goal, it is accessible to everybody, to people of diverse ranges in terms of hearing, movement, sight, and cognitive abilities. So basically, the impact of disability is radically changed thanks to the web. At least that's the intention for those who are part of the founding fathers, to put it somehow. The mission of the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, is to lead the web to its full potential to be accessible. So basically, they have taken the lead on promoting accessibility and discerning a way to do so. There are standards that have been established by the World Wide Web Consortium, the W3C, like we call it, so that all the content that is put together through the web is accessible to people in different countries, like I said, regions, locations, different abilities, and different types of perceptions. As you see here, there's an illustration of a person who's wearing how do you call that?
Blindfold.
A blindfold. And it just goes to show that you may benefit from the web at some point in your life. And that's one another thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Why is it important? So in terms of the numbers, even though I don't really like to talk about numbers, because when we talk about people, we talk about lives and we talk about whole stories and we talk about personal needs. But we do need to look at the numbers so that we understand the impact of having digital content, web content that is accessible. We have that according to the US Census, there's around 20% of the United States population who have some sort of a disability. 11% of college students have been found to have some sort of a disability. This figure specifically may be misleading because many students who receive special services for persons with disabilities at the K to 12 population usually don't report a disability when they go to college. It's very rarely that students who have received this kind of service at the earlier education, when they go to college, they resist the idea of reporting because they don't want a stigma to be, to follow them throughout their college education. As you see here at Iowa State, more and more we're growing in terms of the students who resort to the services that we provide for students with disabilities. We have more than 2,000 students that have documented disabilities. And as you see here in the slide, according to Disability Planning Data, which is an organization that offers statistics about disability, in Iowa, 12% of the population has a disability. Like I said again, this figure may be misleading, especially because accessibility is a fluid term. Accessibility, or I mean, disability is a fluid term. You may be disabled at some point in your life if you suffer some sort of of an accident. Like myself, my sight is going, more and more as I grow older. So that tends to happen as you grow older. You may have more mobility issues, more eyesight issues, and like I said, disability may be temporary. I don't have any questions yet. Okay, good. That's good, I guess. I hope that you guys are getting it. So, and finally, or not finally, but as part of the reason behind accessibility, we can think of it as a human right, as a philosophical or ethical or moral responsibility, other than our mission at Iowa State and extension, as you will see in a minute. Accessibility is a human right, and it has so been stated by the United Nations. As you see here, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities basically promotes that each nation has access to information and provides accessible formats and technologies. One another thing, accessibility is the law. And you may have heard about ADA compliance and 508 before, but here you have it more in detail. We have different sections of federal law that apply to accessibility, and as so, they have been found to be relevant in courts of law. There has been many cases lately that have been brought up in terms of specifically digital accessibility. So if someone with a disability tries to use a website and they find that they can't access information because of the coding behind the website, because the content hasn't been made accessible, they have a right to file a complaint and even go to court and claim that that the content is made accessible. The most recent case that I can remember was an arrange or a case that was where Winn-Dixie, it's a supermarket store chain in Florida, and they were sued, and they basically had to bring all their content to compliance. There's also a lot of cases related to higher education, more and more prevalent because there are law firms that are basically are dedicated to identify websites that are not accessible and bring complaints onto the Department of Justice or Department of Education. So as you see here, there's at least three federal laws or three federal sections that apply to accessibility, specifically digital accessibility. Section 504 requires that we don't discriminate against people with disabilities. Section 508 requires that software and hardware, things that are digital, are accessible. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires equality of communications for persons with disabilities, and that has been found to include the web as a public space. And as you see here, the Iowa Civil Rights Act of 1965 prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability. So basically, we have state level laws that also apply to accessibility online. Again, before we move on, I'd like to let you know again, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please enter them into the chat and we can respond to those. Okay, so finally, I think this is my final slide about the reasons why. There's a lot of reasons why, as you may have seen. It is a good business practice as the web evolves, and you may have gathered by now that people resort more and more to their cellular phones, to their mobiles, to their smartphones. And when you make things accessible as a person who deals with the web, you make your content accessible to people who are moving around, maybe at a environment when there's a lot of noise, where the light changes, it's not there's not that much light, etc. But to put it officially, to put it somehow, as you see here, that accessibility increases the readiness for future web technologies. It does impact when somebody conducts a Google search, you want your content to be found, and accessibility allows for that to happen. It helps with your what it's called the search engine optimization, as you see here. It increases the goodwill because when people learn about your efforts for your content to be accessible or see them by just visiting your website, they understand that you're making a goodwill effort, and as such, you get that cookie points, to put it somehow. It reduces bounce rates. So basically, when people visit your website, they stay longer. They don't leave it until they have completed whatever task they wanted to complete in your website. It reduces technical and personnel costs because it reduces as you move forward with content that is inaccessible. You may be impacted by costs that you didn't expect or plan for, even legal costs. And I'm breezing through this, so I hope that
No
I'm
problem.
going at a pace.
I always talk faster than I think too.
Okay, and finally, you see here the mission at Iowa State. Our mission is stated as to create, share, and apply knowledge to make Iowa and the world a better place. So I think it's imbued in our mission that we have a commitment and a responsibility to the world, to human beings of all kinds of abilities, all races, all countries. So, in order for us to be able to share our knowledge, we have to make our content in the web accessible. ISU Extension and Outreach states you guys state in your own fact sheet, sorry, as you see here, that the extension helps carry the university's land grant mission beyond campus borders. So extension is basically what, like the word it says, extension. It extends the impact that Iowa State research and knowledge may have in the world. So you guys are located throughout the 99 counties, right?
100 county offices.
100 county offices. So I'm sure that all of you, any of you, may at some point have to put a Word document together that is going to end up going through the web. And all this knowledge about accessibility is applicable to any kind of content that you send through the web, not only to your websites, and we may be talking about that more in detail in one of the upcoming sessions. But like I said, you guys are commissioned or assigned, or even I guess should be committed to having your content be reachable and accessible to all the persons, all the people in Iowa and beyond. beyond. And here we go to the checkpoint, and Christy has it already ready to go. I have she has shared the link to the survey. What I did is I put a survey together so that I can get your responses and see how is it going. I'm gonna pull it up. I didn't have it ready.
So if you can just click on the link real quick, I think it's only one question for right now. Just complete the first question.
Yes. It's just a checkpoint to make sure, like a good professor that I used to be. I like to I like to check on you guys' understanding up till now. Let's give them.
Yeah, give them just a little bit of time to complete that.
I'm not sure if I get live responses. At least I have two, I think. Yes, I have two people. Oh, they went through all the questions already.
I'm pretty sure I did that the first time.
Okay, so the first question is, let me go back to my survey so that I can give you guys the text. The first question would be digital accessibility is only promoted by extension because it is a legal requirement. What's the answer to that, Christy?
No.
Of course not. I'm sure that you guys know this. It might be a dumb question somewhat, but it's just a matter of trying to recap on all the different angles and factors that you can take into account when you're thinking about accessibility. It's the legal factor. It's not only the moral factor. It's the legal factor. Is this business factor? Is the human factor? I don't know. What else? What else can you think of?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a commitment to providing the extension to our communities, which we can't do if we're not providing it in a context that they can understand or access, really.
And merely now, basically driving your content, I mean, increasing the reach that your content may have, because by making it accessible, like you saw before, you're making it more searchable or reachable through searches in the web, amongst other things. So that's good. It's positive. It's not only about legal requirements. I'm not the 508 police like somebody called me before.
Well, I mean, because it's our mission, we would be doing it whether it was required by law.
Exactly.
Anyway, the law is just like a backup for why we're doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's to scare people off. No, I'm kidding. Okay, moving on. Let's see how you use it too. And by now, I think you may have sensed some of what you get benefits from. But let's go a little bit into detail. So anybody who is part of a community who communicates, interacts through the web or any sort of digital technology is impacted by accessibility. So I usually, when I'm presenting, just yesterday, I had a training, Iowa State, and I presented, and I was saying, well, if you communicate through email, you should know about this, or you should learn about this. If you use a smartphone to access different things, you should know about this. So I don't like to generalize because people may have different contexts, concerns. My own father, who's 70 in his 70s, he doesn't really use the web that much, but still he sometimes resorts to information. And basically everybody is impacted by this and should learn about it because we are at some point digital content creators or editors, as well as consumers.
What way have you used accessibility in your life?
Oh my God, for me it's super important because as a non-native English speaker, when I first came, I mean, I knew English even before I came here, but it wasn't as polished, and maybe it's not as polished still. But um, I mean, maybe it was because I got used to it in Puerto Rico, where I'm from. We have the movies come in, and when I was when I was younger, I would go to the movies, and we had captions. But the captions were subtitles because they were a translation to Spanish. So I guess I got used to those, and even because maybe I don't hear that well nowadays, I see captions in English in any kind of content that I consume, and they are so great. Sometimes I'm like traveling at the airport and I want to be able to see a movie, but you can't really. I mean, even with the earphones, with the headphones, you sometimes you can't hear that well, or I can't hear that well. So I resort to the captions a lot. And it's been proven that captions help increase understanding even in native speakers. So, for instance, that I would say that with our students, when they see captions, when they can resort to those, it helps them understand terms that they may not be familiar with to start with, technical jargon and stuff like that. So it's important. So I've used digital accessibility like that. Christy, used anything like that?
Yeah. I use it on my smartphone all the time.
Really?
If I'm on Facebook or something and
Uh-huh.
I'm scrolling and I see a video and I don't know if I want to actually click on the video, I can read the
Oh,
captions.
yes.
Foreign movie captions.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
That's the captions and the things that you may not perceive in terms of the decision making when people put content together. And if they don't have colors that you can discern, like if there's a lot of light or there's not much light, and there's
Right.
no high contrast between the background and the text. I mean, like let's say somebody designs a website where they have a blue background and then green text.
Yeah.
That's not going to be readable.
Right. And then iPhones have this really cool thing on their voicemails where it tries to decipher what the person that left you a voicemail is actually saying.
Okay.
And it gives you the
like
text.
voicemail to text.
Yes,
Oh,
but it's
awesome.
like on your voicemail screen, so you
Yeah.
can just see what it says
Uh-huh.
before you actually play the message. It saves me a lot of time.
Yeah. I think eventually, my sense is that the web and when you interact with your phone, even though we're not there yet, there's gonna be a more recognition of what you're saying, and your cell phone, your smartphone is gonna be able, and the web is gonna be able to react to what you're saying instead of having to type.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Yep.
So, and it's gonna talk back to you. That's
Yeah.
what I'm betting on.
Like Siri or Cortana.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you use it? We just now we talked about different examples. Here, a list of what I can think of that you might come across. When you're able to discern colors and content, like I just said, because of correct use of contrast. So this is something that you are going to have to take into account when you're putting together your digital content. Have it be contrasting enough so that people may be able to discern. And you have people with disabilities in terms of vision, for instance, low vision, people who are blind and may resort to a screen reader might be searched some other ways, but people who are low vision or who have color blindness may benefit from this kind of feature or accessibility requirement. When people have slow connection, which I think might happen sometimes in Iowa, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of people that might still be on dial-up.
Okay, so when people have a slow connection or an error, if the image is not showing, they might see a description of the image that is included in the web page as a result of accessibility considerations. And that helps a person who doesn't see the image, well, at least they see, a description of the image, what was intended to be communicated through that image. When you watch a video, like I said, like I used to do, or I do now, I'm watching Scandal right now and I can't let it go. If you resort to captions, even if you can't see or you can't understand them, you have perfect audition. If you resort to captions in a noisy environment, you're using something that is related to accessibility. Also, when you pause it, rewind it, or advance it, because those controls are meant to be make your content accessible to, depending on if you want to forward it, if you want to stop it for a minute so that you can catch up to the content. The controls are meant to make the content more accessible. When you find content in the web that is well organized and readable, usability, I mean, accessibility is it's good design because it helps you think about the ways that you can communicate your content and make it so that it's well put together. When you think about how are you going to break up your content, what headings do you need, and how to organize those headings, those are decisions that are related to accessibility. When you use links that clearly describe what they stand for, so basically you see a link in somewhere in the content, and if it's just an URL, you don't know where that URL is going to take you to. If the link says some sort of a description instead of having a link that says click here or read more, if the link says, let's say that we're talking about what's one of the things that extension does, education for agriculture or
Yeah,
4-H. What does 4-H
4-H, we have
do?
local
One
foods.
local food. So let's say that there's a link to a local food event. Instead of having it be the URL or click here or read more, you have it be a description of the event.
Kyle wants to know if the color options that we have for creating our county websites are considered good contrast.
So what are the color
Oh,
options?
Lord. The colors that you cannot change on your website. So, for instance, the white word mark with the red bar, or the blue background on the contact us or the connect with us box, and the white lettering. Those are all designed to have good contrast. The colors that you can change, such as the headings, I think one or two of them might actually be acceptable. The other ones are not acceptable at all.
From testing Iowa State stuff, I know for a fact that gold over red or red over
Right.
over gold is not accessible. It's not
And
considered to be accessible.
white and gold, either way,
Yeah.
are not accessible either, which I recognize we use a lot of. Currently, I would say our county websites are not accessible in the least. We have been working on that slowly, and with the county website transition, we'll be building a platform that is, from the ground up accessible. If you've attended any of our other digital accessibility webinars or face-to-face trainings, we always talk about working on the low-hanging fruit right now, adding image alt text,
Yes.
not doing the click here or read more links. Those are the things that we really want to focus on right now, with the understanding that we're working on giving you a more accessible website.
And that's exactly the way to go about it, because it is, I mean, accessibility is not a number. You're never going to get it 100%. I mean, I'm not being pessimistic. It's just that as you evolve and include more content, it's an ongoing process, to put it somehow. And you have to prioritize, and like Christy said, have the low hanging fruit be tended to first. Having said that, I have to say that Christy is one of the accessibility champions that I have met since I came on board last year. Christy has done a lot more, and even before that, I know that she had it already in her agenda, doing tasks that were related to promoting accessibility at Extension. So you guys have a great case study, to put it somehow, where you have set an example throughout Iowa State. I talk a lot about what it's being done in Extension to promote accessibility. Okay, so I don't know if I can pull up something else. I had planned to show them a contrast checker, but we can move on and maybe do that eventually when we get together again.
Yeah, let's see if we can figure that out. Bear with us for a minute. We're gonna share my screen. So go ahead.
Okay, so oops, this is so weird. Web,
We have one of those ergonomic keyboards
yeah,
here.
and I'm not used to it. WebM Wave. So, oh, Wave is, no, it's the contrast checker. Web contrast checker. So as you see here, there's this website or application on the web, through this organization, WebAIM. Are they seeing it? Okay. WebAIM, it's an organization that has been around for a long time and they work on accessibility. That's their goal, that's their mission. So they have developed already this contrast checker. When you're making color decisions for your design or your content, you can go and check it here, and you just click on the field as you see there, and you can select. Even if it's not the exact color, you can do an approximate to make sure that it's accessible. For instance, you see, let's pick something like red and the red and the gold. I've done it before.
Do you want the actual colors?
What
I
is
have
it?
them pulled up.
Okay.
Do you want red on the foreground?
Yeah.
It is C8
C8
102E.
102E, and then
Yellow.
the yellow
F1
F1
BE
BE
48.
48. And these are codes for
They're the hex values for the colors, yeah.
And you see here that there's a fail. This WCAG, that's Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and these are the ones that we abide by. WCAG AA, not AAA. So if it were to say pass here and fail here, that would be okay.
AAA would be considered basically perfect.
Exactly. Yeah. So for large text, it does pass. But for normal text, which is like, the text that people read through basically all the time, so the body, the text here, that's considered normal text, it fails. So don't use, and you even have examples here.
And this is not just for web, this is also for like documents as well, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So there you have it. You have one example, at least, of how one tool that you can resort to. You want to copy the link and give it to them?
I'll put the link in the chat box. Okay. And then, are you ready to go back to your?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can figure this out. Kim, it's saying that red should not be used on top of yellow.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna put that link in the chat box, and you guys can use that. The same is true for yellow and white. Like whether it's yellow in the background or yellow as the text, it doesn't matter. Yellow and white together are not enough of a contrast. But if you were to switch that yellow, I'm sorry, if you were supposed like the red bar, for instance, red bar is on everything with a white word mark. That is 100% accessible. So we do try very hard, but it's difficult.
You got it. Okay, so I talked about the color, I talked about the links. When you come across tables, there's when you're doing tables in web content, in the web, in a web page, you should include headings in that table, and you do that with a tag, with a specific tag. I don't know if they have to get into that.
On their table properties, when they're adding a table in the content editor, there's a box in that pop-up that they have that allows them to pick whether it's the top row or the top column.
Great. So Christy has done work so that you guys can do it easier, even without having to go into a coding application. And also forms. Forms need labels. Forms need instructions, even for whoever. I mean, I sometimes come across forms that leave you baffled because you don't know what to do. I mean, there's a contradiction in how the fields are presented. You're not clear about where to put what, or even in what format. How many times have you come across a form that you have to enter a date, for instance, when you're entering your credit card, and they require different formats every time. So you should be clear about what do your user in your website in your form needs to do when they get there. We're good on time, right?
Yes.
So I was gonna do a demo here about the before and after.
Do you want me to get you to the web again?
Please. And I'm sorry to take you guys back and forth, but this is just so that you can see. And I think I have the link in the presentation. Can I pull that up? If not, I'll just pull it up from the web. I think it's W3C before and after. Let's see if that pulls it up. Yes. So again, the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, has put together a lot of information, and you can resort to their resources on your own if you want. But I have pulled this one up specifically because it's basically a demo of how things can be accessible, and making them accessible doesn't change them that much. So you see here in this bar, there's an inaccessible homepage, and then there's an accessible homepage. Right now we're in the accessible homepage. As you see here, some of the things that you're gonna see that are different is that the links here they're stated in terms of, what is it that they're gonna go to if they click on that link. If the user clicks here, they know what they're gonna find. There's good contrast. I mean, it's very easily discernible. There's many different considerations. And this website shows you annotations on what things were done, how things are taken care of here so that it is accessible. If you go to the inaccessible homepage, you're gonna see that basically it's very similar, right? Mm-hmm. But there's little things that the designer has done so that it makes it accessible. And some of them are like I said, the consideration of the link description. So instead of having a link here that says more, the accessible website has a link that says heat wave so that people know where they're going. And if a user resorts to a screen reader because they have low vision, or because of their cognitive disability, or just because they like to hear the content, they can know what they're going to. And even a user who sees it visually, it's a lot more, informative. It's a lot better designed, to put it somehow. And then some other considerations. This image does not have any text alternative. For any image that you upload to the web, you should have a text alternative so that a screen reader user may be able to know what are you conveying by that specific image in that website. You want to go back?
Yes.
And you can give them the link to if you want.
I gave them the link to the WAI.
Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be like all messed up if I were doing all this clicking around. Okay, so moving on, we have a checkpoint here. And let's see what we have.
You can click on the link that I originally copied at the very beginning. It'll be the second question.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, we have more. We have a lot more responses. Yay. Exciting. Okay, so we have, the question is, let me go back to the survey. Accessibility includes taking into account, and then you can select as many as you want, color contrast, links, headings, website address, location of elements. And should we give them a minute?
Yeah, we'll give you just a minute to complete the second question.
So,
did everyone get the first one right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Great.
Well, no. All right. I'm not going to say the name. Okay, somebody said yes. No, that's a no. The first question was a no. You not only design accessible content because of the law, there's a lot of other considerations that I've already talked about. Hopefully you guys get it. I mean, get that concept better now. So going ahead, moving ahead, I would say that all but, I mean, sometimes I come up with questions that may not be like they may be fluid in terms of what you can answer. But this one, I would think that accessibility includes taking into account all but the website address and maybe even the website address because sometimes people make website addresses that are more, that you can remember better. But I would say all but that one.
Thank goodness. I thought maybe I hadn't thought about something yet.
Color contrast, definitely. I mean, if you can't discern your text from your background, you're not going to be able to read the content. The content. If I've talked about the links at length already. Headings. If you have a website where you haven't really broken down, it's a lot of content, and you haven't broken down the content with headings by so that you can relay the information better to your reader, your visitor, your user, then it's
And
not
we
accessible.
and we don't mean headings as in bolding or italicizing
No.
or underlining text.
No.
We mean the actual headings in the format drop down.
Uh-huh. And you may know more about, I mean, how do they see the headings? How can they program headings?
It's in their content editor and they have predefined options with sizes and colors. Um, so they can do that. And it's just like, in a Word document, you don't change the size and color yourself. You use the headings that Microsoft Office provides.
Yeah. So don't resort to bolding or increasing the size of the font. Go to your predetermined styles that uh, uh, Christy here has provided for you, amongst other with her team. Okay, and we have headings, and then we have location of elements. Yeah, if you want your things to be readable and you have follow a natural flow, people tend to, in the Western society, we tend to read from left to right, so that's one another consideration. And there's a lot of studies that prove, the position in elements in the page might help you drive your content and your whatever meaning you're trying to convey. So moving on, we have a little bit of time. Why is it important? Extension does digital accessibility, and I think that we stated it already. It's a human right. It's required by law. It's inherent in our mission and purpose, and it's good for business. I don't think. Is there anything else that I haven't even thought about?
No, I mean, I think it just overall helps us do our job better to reach members of our communities.
So I have upcoming like the next slide is I love this illustration that I found on the web about accessibility, and it shows how throughout life you may, when you grow older you may not be as mobile as you used to be. My mom right now it has a lot of mobility issues, and she watches Netflix all the time. So having that content, a parenthesis here. Netflix is one of the companies that had a case in court, and they were sued because they didn't have captions, and now they have to have captions. They agreed to have captions. So the captions that you may benefit from if you do those, if you use Netflix, and this is not a paid announcement, by the way. The captions that you use in Netflix are the result of a court case thanks to accessibility compliance. So yeah, I love this picture because it shows you the diversity of human experience, at least some of it. When you're pregnant, you have mobility issues. I went through those at some point in my life, and so on and so forth. So it drives the message across. And this is checkpoint number 3, the third question. I can't even, let me go back to the survey. The third question is web accessibility benefits, and it lists person with disabilities, non-native language speakers, the elder, all of the above. And of course, it's all of the above. I just talked about that. So the last slides are where to go for information. I have put together as part of my, my job at Iowa State, I have put together a website. It's called Digital Access, or the URL is digitalaccess.iastate.edu. And what I've done is that basically there's so much information in the web. What I've done is that I've gone through information and tried to curate it and present it in a way that is more, it obeys the needs of different people at Iowa State. There is a link that, as you see here, to get started. If you have never heard about accessibility, it helps you identify, understand what to do. So there's a link for getting training. If you're interested in me going to your office, I can do a face-to-face or even a video conference if we can't connect face-to-face. So I am your go person, to your point of contact at Iowa State for web accessibility. And there's a lot of resources. I mean, you can go to the web and search on Google. What I try to do here is just curate them, like I said, and see what's good, what's really, what's something that you can rely on for doing your work in accessibility. And what else do we have? I think I have their, the website, the URL.
And I put that in the chat box
Okay,
too.
great. And then, if you'd like to receive more information, you can enter your information in the same survey. That's the link that was provided already. So that the one thing that I'm gonna do right away is take all their email addresses if they allow me to do that. I mean, unless somebody tells me no, I'll just include all these email addresses in the newsletter that I sent out.
Yeah. Yep. If you would like to get that newsletter that Zaira sends out, and like what kind of things do you include there, Zaira?
There's
I know because I get them.
Yeah, there's tips of like I do a tip of the week. I mean, I send it out every 2 weeks, more or less. So I send a tip of the week that talks about how to do accessibility for something, for one element in your page, for one type of content, like for instance, PDFs or color or whatever. So one tip of the week, upcoming events and news. I mean, if something is going on out there or at Iowa State about accessibility, I try to feature it in the newsletter.
There's also quite a bit of accessibility information relating to content editing on Extension IT's website. There's a main menu link called tutorials, and then you select which version of Drupal you're on, and there's little tidbits thrown in there as well for your job specifically and how that relates to your job as a content editor.
And I think we did great in timing. And I would like, if they have any questions or you want to talk about your upcoming sessions?
Yeah,
or
there's a
sessions?
slide in here. I think it might be
After
next.
this? Okay.
Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead
yeah.
and type in the chat box if you want to ask any questions. The slide in front of you is the list of the next webinars for the digital accessibility series that Zaira is presenting. Our next one is September 28th, and we're going to be focusing on online content, so web content. October, we have one specifically for video captioning. In November, accessible documents, and in December, one specifically for online courses, e-learning, basically. And we'll be recording those on the same channel that we're on right now. And we will record them and have them available if you're unable to make it. But please feel free to forward the information to anyone else in your office who you think would benefit from learning any of this information. So we've separated them into the webinar series so that we can spend more time going into more detail. Most of there's so much to it. Most of the time we only scratch the surface when we talk about it. So we wanted to have the ability to go into more detail on that.
Yeah, and also if you visit the Digital Access website, there's a series of workshops that I'm doing face to face throughout the fall. So if it just so happens that you're on campus, you can come over.
Yeah.
I think somebody's typing.
Yep.
We have a few minutes, thank God. I hope I
You
can
did
rush
good.
through it.
I usually talk for like 20 minutes and I'm supposed to talk for an hour, but
I'm getting there. I'm getting there to the point where I'm self-conscious about trying to take things a little bit slower. And with my accent, sometimes, it's even more important that I do that.
okay, guys, we're gonna go ahead and stop the recording. Unless someone else has a question they want to ask real quick. You can contact either Extension IT at extensionweb@iastate.edu, or you can contact Zaira as well if you have any questions about accessibility that you need help with. Otherwise, we hope to see you at the
Next session.
yeah, September 28th.
Thank you so much for attending.
We have a couple.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you.
all right, guys. Have a good rest of the day. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend.
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry, Kim. Kim, it's Dr. Zaira Jordan. Do you have your here? Here's the slide right here if you want her